I don't like death. I love it. Which is to say, I understand death. I understand how it affects me, and I take it as it comes. I accept it. I am familiar with it. Love is not always pleasure. In fact, it most often is not. Some of us know this. I have never killed a man, but I have seen men die. Great men, proud men, reduced from hierophants to gaunt and sallow ghosts, yellow skeletons with pink eyes, watery and afraid, begging for the God they now admit hates them to take them sooner. This is not an enjoyable thing to watch, mostly because I, much to my disappointment, have something in my DNA called empathy. This means I care about you whether or not you deserve it. I can count on one hand the number of beings whose lives I have taken. There are no people on this list, only insects. Also a robin, but we talked about that. I once lived in an old schoolhouse. Centipedes would crawl up from under the floors after I had turned out the lights and just sit there. When I would come home from work or wake in the morning, there one would sit, eyeless, long, and disgusting. I had no reason to kill these things, and I've killed many, but I simply kill them because they do not belong. It is my house, my home, my realm, under my rule. I put the centipede in a mason jar, and I set it on my electric stove. I turn up the heat until the glass explodes, and the wriggling demon is a smelly black smear. Sometimes I will put it in a jar and pour just a little bit of olive oil over it, just enough so that it cannot move its 1,000 tiny legs, and just enough so that it cannot breathe. I rinse the jar out in the sink and throw it in the trash. After, of course, I poured the corpse into the toilet and flushed. This is recent history. If we go back further, I recall murdering something called a tent worm. They call these things, which they're a sort of caterpillar, they call them tent worms because they set up shop in between the branches of trees, and they weave thick, sticky nests like tents, and they multiply like bacteria. I was a child, and I was informed that these were bad, quote-unquote, bugs. Why? Because they are an invasive species. They are foreign to our ecosystem. This is the first thing I ever remember killing. And again, I did it not for fun, but this time I was following someone else's orders. I stomped it to death on a sidewalk next to a flower bed, and I watched the greenish mucus of its insides erupt from the tears in its body. It never knew what happened. I only ever killed one tent worm, and I felt an immense guilt afterwards. Why? I didn't know, so I analyzed this feeling carefully. I did not know for a fact that this was a so-called bad bug. It is food for other animals, and even if it does kill trees, dead trees just make more trees, right? I resolved to no longer meddle in affairs that do not concern me. The trees can take care of themselves. They always have, and they always will. The third and final death we will speak of is the murder of the grasshopper. The genocide, if you will, because I killed several. I'm not great with numbers, but it could have killed at least 6. Again, Father, forgive us. We know not what we do. I was but a child. I walk through the fields. Knee-high grass tickles and pricks my bare legs, and the sun shines gently on my face. When I move, first in one direction and then another, the grasshoppers instinctively know to fear me. They leap and flutter. They make mad attempts to escape, but nobody escapes their fate. I did not consider the fact that these things may be aware. They may have their place. The only thing I knew is when I would grab their little hard heads between my fingernails and pull, they would slide off with ease. Attached to it would be a string of glistening innards. It would continue to move once its head was gone, but no more do they leap, no more do they flutter. As a child, I made mistakes. I have learned from them. Needless death is not and has never been our agenda. When you're the master of reality, however, small actions have large ripples, interdimensionally speaking. The ghosts of the insects that I killed in the past haunt me not, for I have changed what I can and accepted what I can't. Love is the law. Love under will. The intentions of the actor decide the efficacy of his actions, and our conscience is our guide. Grasshoppers and locusts are one and the same creature. Look into it.